It's not on here.
I can see the lathe now. Look, I'm watching it. That's what I can see.
Can you see me now?
No, I can see your oven.
Can you see me now?
I can see your oven. You need to flip the camera, don't you? Or something?
I've flipped the camera.
I can hear you. That's what we can see at the moment.
Can you see if there's another thing with me on? Another live. Hello folks. I don't know if you can see me or not. This is a right mess up. For some reason the orientation went wrong, and when I tried to correct it, it cancelled my planned live stream, so I've had to start a new live stream. So I've probably lost everyone. Apparently Jenny says I'm back on, but not with my planned thumbnail and everything. It's a new live stream, so sorry about that. I've spent all morning getting this ready, and then I go and mess it up at the last minute. So anyway, it's been a bit of a week like that. I had a heck of a week. Not been feeling great. Been at work part of the week. Nearly lost my voice from shouting through PPE. But out in the workshop now, and thank you very much to Easy Wood Tools and Carl Jacobson for organising all this. I'm just checking the chat. Yeah, some people are watching, I think, so that's good. Anyway, we're going to do some Milliput. I've got a very primitive setup, camera wise and everything. It's I haven't got a laptop and anything like that out here, so I'm trying to go live off my iPhone. And like I say, all the test runs I did were perfect, and then this has got them messed up at the last minute. But let's get my Easy Wood Tools cool smock on, and then we'll get turning. So I'm going to have to bear with me while I move the camera around. But, because I've only got the one camera. So let's get this shifted. Hopefully you're looking at this sycamore blank now, which is an ex-demo piece. I have to prepare pieces in different stages when I'm doing Milliput demos, because it takes a while to set. And this is a piece probably from a Yandles demo or something, where I part finished this sort of flying saucer shaped bowl. And I've just remounted it onto my Easy Chuck on the Regent lathe. And I need to true it up again, because there's a little bit of a wobble on there. Because I could have just cut the inlay into this surface. But I'm going to true it up. So just get my visor on. Probably my favourite Easy Wood tool is the Pro Rougher. Easy Wood Tools Pro Rougher from Pro Series. Massive long handle on that. Let's see if I can show you that a bit better. But and that's with the square tip. Now I'm just going to use that, cutting at centre height, just to re-true this up again. Just change the angle here. So I just saw a message then. I'm going to struggle looking at the chat and everything because I'm struggling enough with the technology as it is. But I'll get on with some turning. I know what I'm doing with that. I don't know if you can hear me with the visor on. I'm just taking some gentle cuts here on this sycamore. We're just about true. I'll take a bit more off. I'm not worried about this lower, the underside of the bowl being a bit wonky donkey. As long as this top side where I'm going to put the inlay is okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine now. It's actually got a very good finish off that, but a little bit of sanding needed. You don't have to sand before doing the Milliput inlay, but it does help because it stops Milliput getting ingrained into any open grain there. You know, you can easily push it in and it makes finishing it more difficult afterwards. So I do tend to give it a quick sand. So I'm going to use a self-powered inertia sander just to get that smooth. Let's get the tool rest out of the way. Give that a quick skim over. So that should do it. That'll do. Now we're going to cut our groove for putting, or the recess for putting the Milliput inlay in. Bring up the tool rest again. And I'm going to use the Easywood Tools carbide parting tool for doing this. Now we've got to be cutting on centre again, so I need to drop the tool rest a little bit for this, just to bring it down onto centre. That's about right, keeping the tool level. I'm coming in sort of perpendicular to the surface here. I'm not worried about the finish in the bottom of the recess, that helps grip everything, but as long as these outside edges are nice clean cuts, that's the crucial thing. What I'm doing is I'm just going in, it's about 1/8 of an inch I suppose, 3mm, and that should do. I'm going to do a bit of dusting now. He says, if he can find his duster. No, we're not doing any dusting today. Usually I've got a big painter's brush, decorator's brush, which I brush out any dust from in that groove. But it's not too bad actually. It'll have to do. I don't know what I've done with that. The workshop's such a tip at the minute. Band it. Brush the camera. Then we better start doing some Milliput. Change of camera, angle. That looks about right. Some non-slip mat on my lathe bed. Lump of old worktop. I think we use that side. No, we won't. Right. Now I presume you've all heard of this stuff. You may not have done. It's Milliput, which is an epoxy putty. So it's a 2-part putty. You mix it up. This one's black, as it says. So you've got the 2 sausages. And this is the newer turquoise colour. And we're going to mix equal lengths. I don't know how much we're going to need here. I'll mix half a packet of each, I think, to be safe. See, when I'm doing my videos on YouTube, I edit out all this stuff. So I'm sorry I can't respond to these messages. I'll just have a quick look while we're having a look here. Hi, Carl. Yeah, let's get this out. Sorry about the earlier mess up with the going live. Best laid plans and all that. What went wrong was the orientation locked itself in portrait, and I couldn't unlock it without ending the live stream. And I'm doing all this on my iPhone, hence why it was a bit roller coastery. Got the neighbour's dog barking now, as well as the traffic and the wind. Just cut off equal lengths of black. And we'll just put this away because I know what will happen. I'll kick it off into the sawdust on the floor. Just stick that out of the way. And we'll get mixing. how I tend to mix this, because you only ever see the abbreviated version really when I'm on my channel normally, but I tend to start tearing it and layering it, because instantly that's you know, you're doubling it each time and it distributes the two different colours throughout. So that's how I start, and then once it's like that, you can knead it. Now I'm beginning to get a little bit of arthritis in my thumbs, and it can be quite hard work kneading, and you need to do this for a good 5 minutes. So what I would suggest is that once you get it to this stage where it's marbled, you know, pretty well marbled, you can start doing what I call roll and fold, where I tend to roll it like that and fold it into the middle. And if you keep folding the ends into the middle, then it's the ends and the edges where you get the unmixed stuff. So if you keep doing this, it's a lot less hard work on your fingers and thumbs, and it gets a really thorough mix. You can flatten it out every so often and give it a little knead, but I find rolling and folding is very, very effective. I can't edit this bit out, so I'm afraid you're going to have to watch me mix Milliput twice. It's not the most interesting of video footage. Perhaps I can have a look at some of these have a look at some of these comments. I often get asked about pasta machines and Milliput. That's quite a common question. Yeah, don't put it in a pasta machine. That'll be the last time that pasta machine ever works. This stuff sticks to everything and it sets like rock. So do not use a pasta machine. Yeah, let's have a look at these. Yeah, I'm going to use a rolling pin in a minute. Yeah, Milliput might consider some other colours in the future. Hi, Jamie. But yeah, they are a very small company, Milliput. They're a UK company based in Wales. Small family business. They're lovely people, really lovely, and they for them to sort of expand their product line is quite a big thing, you know. They for their factory. But let's have a look and see what else. How did I first learn about Milliput? Goes back a long time. 1984. It was my final year at school. I was 16. And Mum and Dad had gone away on holiday and left me and my brother at home for a week or so, and some mysterious holes appeared in the new fiberglass garden pond, which I knew was from my brother's air rifle, and we needed to fix them before Mum and Dad got back. So someone told me about Milliput. So I went and got some Milliput and we repaired the pond with the Milliput. Repaired the fiberglass pond. And being a creative sort, I've made things all my life. I thought, this has got some possibilities. So I quickly started making little figurines and things like that out of it, and wood carving. I used it to inlay the eyes in wood carvings and things. And I made some personalised key rings out of it and light pulls, where I cut holes and drilled holes in wood and filled it with Milliput and then sanded it back. You know, I carved people's names in bits of wood to make key rings, you know, filling it with Milliput and then sanding it back to give these lovely inlays, but that was years ago. And when I started woodturning, I you know, sort of automatically started looking at inlaying it into my woodturning. So I'm getting a bit hot. It's quite muggy. It's quite humid today. Normally I would put a fresh pair of gloves on, or mix the lighter colour first. But for the purposes of this, it'll be fine. Get this out of the way. Now you saw what I did with the first colour that I mixed. I laid it out flat because I'm going to be setting this aside. I don't want it starting to set too quick. Now, like all epoxies, it's an exothermic reaction as it sets. If you leave this in a ball, it'll build up more heat and it will set quicker. So lay it out flat and it just retards the set a little bit. I'm going to put it on a little bit of baking parchment just so it doesn't stick. Nearly went in the sawdust, didn't it? Right, start mixing this. We're going to be doing this in layers, and it's a good starting point for a lot of Milliput patterns, even the really random marble patterns. It's good to do it in layers. Yeah, if you lay it out in sheets first, you can get a sort of a more organised random, if that makes sense. If you try and just put a block of, say, black and a block of white and try and create a marble pattern, you'll end up with some parts that are all black, some parts that are all white. So I would suggest that rolling it out into sheets first so you get an even distribution is a good idea, and certainly for the more complex patterns that's what you need to do. Still can't believe a rubbish start to this live event after all my test runs this morning. Let's have a look at some of these questions. Did my parents ever find out about the holes in the pond? I think they probably just found out then. What else have we seen? Just trying to see. Oh, someone from the Philippines. Hello. Hello, Jacobson. I'm mixing this without looking at it. Mind you, I should be able to do that by now, shouldn't I? Hi, Leona. You can see this changes colour. It starts off looking quite dark green, but then it does change to the more familiar turquoise as you mix it. How many colours does Milliput come in? I think it's 6 colours now, but there's only not all of them are really so good for doing inlay work. There's a standard colour Milliput, which was the original Milliput, which is sort of as it comes really. That's you know, the sort of natural colour of the product, and that's a sort of an off yellow, and that's not that decorative for inlay work, so I probably wouldn't use the standard one. They're all the same property wise really. The white is slightly finer, but the white, the black, the terracotta and the turquoise are the best ones for doing the inlays with, I find. There's another one which is a silver grey colour, but really, you know, I prefer the plain white to that. Really gives better contrast. Hello, Mary from Illinois. If you had to choose a favourite bird of prey, which would it be? Well, birds of prey are my favourite birds. The hobby, I think. In this country we've got this bird called the hobby falcon, Falco subutio. Can milliput be dyed? That's another very common question I get asked. Yes, it can, but it's a lot of hassle and a lot of mess, and I'm not sure it's worth it. You can add pigment powder to white milliput, and but difficult to achieve much more than a pastel shade, and you have to add a lot of it. Because milliput is opaque, you're only going to see the colour change that is on the surface. So yeah, it's the other way of doing it is to mix pigment powder with epoxy resin, a slow set epoxy resin, and make a really thick paste, and then mix that into some white that you've already mixed up, and that will do it. But like I say, difficult to achieve much more than a pastel shade, and it really is a messy job. So I'm just laying this out flat. And then we're going to roll it out. Nicked my wife's rolling pin again. I really must turn myself one. What have I done with me greaseproof paper parchment? There it is. Hidden in plain sight. I had what I call a bloke look. Right. Let's pop this between parchment. This is the only way to roll this stuff out without it sticking to everything. And this is where I often manage to flip the board where I go over the bed. I'll try and avoid doing that. Trying to look at these comments at the same time as rolling, and it's not working. See, it even sticks to this stuff, especially black. Black is one of the stickier colours. Normally I'll be a lot more fussy about this, but that'll do. Because otherwise we're going to run out of time, and it doesn't make for very interesting footage really. Get a fresh piece of that. If you want to get it really evenly rolled out, then you can put a strip of wood each side that's of the thickness you want it rolled out to, like you would if you're rolling out pottery, clay. I get a lot of people ask me questions about Milliput about that are more relating to polymer clays, and it doesn't behave in the same way as polymer clay. Polymer clays doesn't stick to everything, so usually when I roll these out, I'll cut these bits off and put it together so I get nice rectangular pieces so I can lay one over the other, but I'm just going to put these together as they are now. See, this is sticking. Let's see if we can stretch this a bit. So we're laying the turquoise over the top of the black. Doesn't have to be perfect, thankfully. I'm going to give it an extra roll now. We're going to go for a sort of chevron design, which you might have seen me do before. Usually with Milliput I would recommend chopping it. I've got a flat knife that I chop it with, which is another thing that's gone missing. But, lay that one over that one. I think that'll probably do. Let's cut this into roughly the width that the inlay groove is in. It's better if you chop it because it does tend to drag a little bit if you cut it, but we'll see how we go. Put that bit to one side, I might need that in a minute. But you can see we've got some layers. Then going to chop this into segments. Then we're going to stack the segments. As long as we stack them all the same way. Now don't get too hung up on getting this dead accurate and even, because you won't achieve it. It's always going to have a random element to it, and you just have to embrace the random. So here we are, we're creating this bar that we're going to use for the inlay. Just keeping an eye on the time. Yeah, I'll do a couple more. That's it. I can't look at the chat while I'm doing this, I'm afraid. A lot easier if I had my choppy knife, but I don't know what I've done with it. Stacking these in the same direction. You can try and do this quicker by stacking them more and more, but I find if you do it in little segments, it's actually easier. It gets a better result. You know, if you try and cut too many together or things like that, then it distorts too much, it drags too much. Right. Then join that onto the other one. Just make sure it's all in the same orientation. Let's get this onto the bowl. So let's see, I've made these a little bit too fat, so we're gonna narrow it down. I'm so gutted about messing up the live at the beginning, it's put me off my stroke. Yeah, it's a little bit, I've made these too fat. I should have made them narrower and then squashed them round, because I'm going to run out at this rate, but I'll have to just part do this one. But here what I'm doing, this is what I call squidging, and I'm pushing it in so that I make sure I don't leave any voids. You want it thoroughly packed in so there's no voids. But you want it to be left proud. But as you can see, that is far too proud. I'm wasting Milliput doing this. And I'm only halfway round. I should have cut them, the strips, should have cut them narrower. It won't affect the end result, I'm just wasting Milliput. That's the problem. Let's chop up a few more. I've got to carry on as I started. People who have trouble with Milliput, you know, setting and things, it's usually because they've not mixed it thoroughly enough. It's highly unlikely to be anything else really. If you find you've got Milliput that is set in places and not in others, then it's a mixing error. Because if you've mixed it thoroughly, it would all set to the same degree throughout. So there's a lot of people have trouble with white, and it's because the white is difficult to tell when you've thoroughly mixed it. So just mix it for a good 5 minutes. Time 20 minutes. I've got to get a fair bit in this just to show you the next stage, but pack that in. What else can I tell you about Milliput? Have you got any other questions? Quick look. Could I make a Milliput platypus? Yeah. I've made all sorts of stuff out of Milliput. I have used it for, oh, I don't know, numerous things. I've repaired stuff with it, I've made stuff with it, I've been artistic with it. It's just used it for years. But Right, that's enough to give you, that's enough to show you how to do the next bit. Obviously I need to fill that bit in really, but I'm going to run out of time if I keep messing about. I could probably just about squeeze it out of what I've got left there. I might do that in a moment if it hasn't set. Right. Now we haven't got. The next stage is to create the chevron pattern. So I'm bringing up the tool rest, and we're using a highly technical tool for this, if I can find it. I had it just now. Oh, right, there it is. The Stanley knife. That's what we're using. Now I don't know if you can see at this angle, but I'm resting this on the tool rest and I'm using the back of the blade, not the cutting edge. I'm resting it on the tool rest in the middle of my inlay pattern, and I'm just pulling it through the Milliput by rotating the bowl. Normally it would go all the way round, of course. I'm just going to angle it slightly just to give a bit more pull. That's it. Do that again. Doing it a few passes just to make sure it's properly dragged the pattern. Sometimes it's better to use a slightly thicker backed knife. But then what we have to do is a bit of re-squidging. Squidge it in the direction of the drag as well. But you can see how that pattern's dragged. And as I'm packing it in, you can see how it's muddying the surface. Yeah, it's beginning to look muddy and not very nice. But don't worry about that. All will be revealed in the reveal, which is one of the great things about Milliput. It's lovely when you cut it back, it reveals a nice sharp pattern underneath. But there we go. That's all squidged in. Now what I would now do is put this somewhere indoors, not in a cold workshop, and I leave it overnight to set. It sets within 4 hours usually, but leave it overnight, make sure it's properly set. And like I say, leave it somewhere warm. Leave it on the chuck or the faceplate because you don't want it distorting. When you remount it, you want it to run true to cut the Milliput back. So I'm just going to take off the easy chuck. Now in this country we get I don't know if we've still got it, a children's programme called Blue Peter, and they used to teach kids how to make things, and they always used to say, and here's one I prepared earlier, and here's one I prepared earlier. When I say earlier, I think it was at Makers Central 2 years ago. So it's been in my demo box for ages, and it's on a faceplate. Different shaped bowl, but it's the same pattern but with black and white. This was before turquoise was invented. I would say that this was done as a demo because it's slightly rough, but we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. Lovely noise as I drag that across. Bring the tool rest up. Cutting on centre again. And I'm going to be using the Pro rougher again. And I've gone and put that somewhere as well now. There it is, right behind me. Now Milliput creates a lot of horrible dust, so I am going to put my respirator helmet on now, so you won't hear me for a minute. I mean, take precautions with all dust. Don't, you know, look after your lungs. You only get one set. But things like Milliput and some of the hardwoods produce very, very fine dust. So you can see the pattern emerging, proper zebra pattern this one. You can see where it's not cut back and where it's cut back, and horrible black and white shavings. And when I was cutting it back, notice I'm moving my body with the tool, and that helps give you good control, so make sure you got your feet in a good stance. I'll just get my helmet back on and do a bit more cutting back. Okay, well that's cut back as far as I'm going to cut that back now. There's a few places where it's not quite cut back, and that's where the wood will have moved slightly, so where it's not running true, those bits are left. I don't want to keep cutting back. I can't remember how thick I made this inlay, and I don't want to cut through it. But these areas that are left are more easily removed by sanding in actual fact, so at this point I'm going to switch to sanding. Yeah, don't worry if there, like I say, if there's a few bits left, just finish those off with sanding. But you can see that pattern, that's a really nice zebra pattern that's appeared there. And you get these random bits in, which are hard to avoid, and like I say, embrace the random. I think they add character to the piece. I'll get the tool rest out of the way. I'm loving this new Regent lathe, especially for this work, because it is so quiet. Really quiet and powerful. Have a look at the chat. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, it's yeah, it will look good when it's done. We're nearly there. The black looks a little bit grey at this point, which is another thing that people worry about. When it's polished, it comes out black again. Just put my helmet back on. Sorry about this. Dropping my glasses. Right, do a bit of sanding. Right, so that's sanded to 400, or might be 600 actually. And we're now going to get some sanding sealer on there. Normally I'd spend a bit longer getting that a bit more even around here, but we're going to run out of time, so let's get some sanding sealer on there. Cellulose sanding sealer. And I put 2 coats of this on. You can see it turns black now, the Milliput, where it was looking grey, and the pattern really jumps out at you. You can really see that coming through. This sycamore soaks up sanding sealer. It's actually easier to use the spray version of this, but it'll go all over my camera. Yeah, a more even coat really with the spray stuff. I say normally I put 2 coats on, but how are we doing for time? I think we're going to have to make do with 1 coat. Just give that a moment to dry. Now you notice with the sanding I'm using a rotary system, a self-powered sander. I'm using this one. This is the Simon Hope one, but there's lots of different ones available. The wider, if you've got the space for the wider head on the piece, use the wider head because you get a nicer contour really. And you always try and use a rotary system, because if you just hold sandpaper you're more likely to get grooving and a difference in height between the inlay and the wood. Doing it like this, I've got a lovely smooth, you know, transition, which is what you want because you're sanding across the junction of the wood and the inlay. That's the idea anyway. Next stage, Yorkshire Grit, made by my friend Glyn Senior. Now this is the microfine version, and I like both versions actually, but I think I've used probably the microfine more with Milliput in the past year or so. So with the lathe off, I'm applying a generous coating of this stuff. A little bit over generous there, but you know, don't skimp on it. It's, you know, it's got to do its job. So if you use a fair bit of it, then you're going to get the abrasion you want, but also the lubrication that goes with it. I'm not using a safety cloth here. These are little bits of t-shirt, and they're safe as long as you don't wrap them around your finger. I find little bits of t-shirt give a good finish. So I've got the lathe spinning up, and I'm working this backwards and forwards and covering my camera in all sorts of stuff. But this is working that grit, and the micro abrasives in it are polishing this up. Oh, 5 minutes. Let's get a clean bit of cloth, and we're buffing away. Buffing away all that. It's a finishing component rather than a finish, so I'm not leaving anything on there. I'm buffing all the way that I can, so I keep checking the cloth, and when it looks clean I'm happy. Ta-da! There it is, all done. And there's the zebra design, which I think it really enhances a fairly plain wood like sycamore. I wouldn't do this sort of inlay work on a fancy piece of wood, you know, a lovely burl or something like that, because, you know, I like to let the wood speak for itself. But on something like this, it does enhance the piece. Let's have a look at my comments. Let's have a look. Yeah. What finishes does Milliput accept? Most finishes, really. The sanding sealer was more for the surrounding wood than the Milliput. When I put that on, that's really just so that you can get the polish on the surrounding wood. The Milliput is very easy to polish. That will polish up just with Yorkshire Grit. But the sanding sealer is more for the surrounding wood. And I will normally, what I would finally finish this in is microcrystalline wax. I'd use a bit of that. That stuff. And I'd put a little bit on and work it, and then leave it for a few minutes, and then spin the lathe up and buff it. But I really like microcrystalline wax. That's one of my favourite finishes. But there we go. Let's switch the camera back. I'm back. Well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to Carl and Easy Wood Tools. And there is a raffle, so check out the link in the description. There is a raffle. Easy Wood Tools have very kindly donated tools, t-shirts, hats and things to the raffle. So check out the links in the description. I think it's Anne of All Trades next, so be sure to check her out and check out everyone else who's on the list. There should be a link to all of the different YouTube channels on the in the description. But I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry about the technical mess up at the beginning. After all my efforts, I still managed to get it wrong. I needed Jamie here, Jamie Page. He'd have sorted it all out for me. I'm good at making things. I'm no good at this technical stuff and computer stuff. It's not my bag really. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I've just got a bit clearing up to do now. I might try and get the rest of that Milliput into the other bowl. But yeah, it was the quickest hour ever, as all demos seem to be. But I'll be back soon. Hopefully do some live stuff now I roughly know what I'm doing. I'll do a Q&A soon. But thank you so much everyone for watching. And I'll try and have a look at some of the other demos later once I've got sorted out. Bye for now.